our topic is about health disparities in Fresno as it pertains to food and as it pertains to air and as it pertains to beverages or water or other beverages. So we have a full-packed program for you today, but I want to pray with you and bless our food and our time together first. So please join me in prayer. God, we are so grateful to be your children. Thank you for this delicious and healthy food. Thank you for everyone who works in this facility to help prepare healthy meals for kids that we know sometimes this is the best meals that they get all day during the week. So be with our presenters, be with those that are still trying to find us, and help us to continue to be change makers and hope dealers in our city. We love you, we believe in you, and thank you for this time together. In Jesus' name, everybody said? Amen. Okay, we also have a theme song as a part of our organization, which our organization is called the No Name Fellowship. So we're not anything official. We don't have bylaws, we don't have officers, we don't have a budget, we're not a nonprofit. We're just a no-name fellowship of human beings from different sectors in our city, from the church sector, from the public elected official sector, and from nonprofits and community people. And that's who we all represent today. And the mission of our No Name Fellowship is, in case you don't know this, it's all about the R's. We're releasing God's resources through reconciled relationships for the rebuilding of our city. And we have been at this little project for over 25 years. And so if this is your first time to be with us, let it not be your last. And we meet quarterly at different places in our city with different topics. And this year, kind of our theme of our whole year is learning to love our city and to know our city. And the things that we've talked about before our meeting today, we talked about economics at our last one and the realities and solutions. We talked about learning to know and love our city at City Hall. That was our first meeting of the year. This one on health disparities. And then we're going to talk about neighborhoods and a religious map of Fresno, education in our city, public safety, and unheard voices. And that'll take us through this whole year. So if you did not get an email inviting you here, Brianna is our keeper of all the records and our chief communications person. So make sure that she has your name in your email so that you will be able to know when and where our next meetings officially are. And our meetings are kind of about three things. We try to expose and exchange and embrace a particular topic and doing that together. So we're going to present information to you, and then we'll have some discussion groups, and then a takeaway or a call to action at the very end. We also have a song that's kind of our theme song, and I typically lead it, which I'm going to do, and I would love it if you would sing along with me if you know this song. And it's about one of my favorite four-letter words, hope. Is my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. So let's sing that together. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. All right, you did great. Oh, thank you. So I have not seen or met Jose Alvarado yet. Jose, are you here?
I don't see him. I was looking for him. I'll see if I can get him later on.
Okay. And Jose is the center director of this facility. So he's going to present a little bit to us about facts and figures. We're the fourth largest school district in the state, and how many breakfast, lunch, and snacks they serve to all the elementary, junior high, and high schools, and he's going to guide us on the tour too. So when he gets here, we'll push him in this wonderful time together. So Sara Bosse is our main facilitator and communicator today, and she is an employee of Fresno, the County Public Health Department. She's also a wife and a mother, and she graduated from Fresno State. And she's been working in public health because she really wants to make a difference in our city. So I think this must be Jose.
It is.
So Sarah, we're coming back to you. Okay. And Mr. Jose Alvarado, come on up. We are so glad that you're hosting us today. Thank you very much.
Welcome to our facility. I heard you were coming, so we said we want to do a good show for you.
Great.
And I hope we met that expectation to provide a good meal today. I wanted to thank Eddie, our catering supervisor, Eddie Carlos. But mostly pitch for the district. We do catering services for the district. So if you ever need a catering service at your facility, we'll be happy to cater that for you. Send me an email and I'll send you a catering menu. We just hosted a large event at the Fresno High Gym. It was the Fresno County Board of Trustees dinner. So every Board of Education in Fresno County has a board, and they send representatives there, and President Castro from Fresno State was the host speaker. So Eddie and his team, we pulled that off at Fresno High. But so if you have any catering needs, we're here to help you. But more importantly, we're here to feed the kids. Every day we serve 90,000 meals in our district. Yeah, we serve 90,000 meals every day. And this facility is about 110,000 square feet. And 1/3 of it is refrigeration. And we have a central kitchen. We prepare probably 60,000 meals out of here every day, pushing out breakfast and lunch. So for this school year, we started a new program called Community Eligibility Provision. And we're the first large school district in California that pushed this new program out. It allows us to feed all of our children in our district with a free breakfast and lunch without any meal applications, which is and the benefit of that is our parents don't have to fill out applications, no money for your child, everybody eats free. It eliminates the stigma of who eats free and who doesn't. And funny story, I got a call from a parent on the north side of town, an attorney, and that I know, and he says, "Hey Jose, I hear my child now can eat free." I said, "Do I qualify? Are you sure you got that right?" You know, because I'm not in that income bracket. And I said, "No, you do qualify. It's a district initiative." And she wanted to thank me because it's just one less thing the parents have to worry about to get their kids ready to go to school. You know, and they focus on learning. Another big program we're pushing out is what we're calling supper. It's actually called after school snack. And the USDA, they call it supper. So if you hear about supper, in our district we coined it a super snack. It sounds a little bit better for the kids, but it allows our kids at 75 schools to have a larger little snack, almost like a dinner, before they go home. So some of the parents have told us that, wow, my little Johnny's come home, he's not hungry. You know, because I know when I got out of school, we were ravaged. We wanted to eat because we spent our lunch money on trading cards, right? On marbles, on other goodies. So some of the kids, even though we offer free meals, they're too busy at lunch, right? They want to go play. But I do know that when they let out of school, they're hungry. And the super snack programs that we visited and monitored, we have very little food waste. The kids are hungry, so they go home with a meal. So we also participate in the fresh fruit and vegetable program. Those are the menu items. We're very proud of that we receive a grant from the state for about $1.5 million of reimbursement. And at 43 schools during recess, we offer the kids in individualized packets fresh fruits and vegetables. And there's no meal application. The kids get to experiment with the products, pick them up, with a little lemon slice in there. And then try to pick them up. We encourage the nutrient-dense vegetables like broccoli, spinach, and when kids come to the nutrition center for field trips, we talk about that with their kids. That when they go to the grocery store, watch mom eat and see what she buys you. Make sure you get the good veggies, not the celery, not the cucumbers, but the nutrient-dense, vegetables. So we have a lot of great relationships. We work with the Fresno County, with Sara, with the UC Cooperative Extension. We work with California Endowment on some projects. We also work with the UC Cooperative Extension. Probably one of our stronger partners. We do nutrition education in the classroom, encouraging kids to eat their fruits and vegetables. But we try to serve a lot of areas, but our main focus is getting our kids ready to learn in the morning by eating breakfast, and then promoting a healthy lunch for them to eat so they can continue the day. So that's our mission, feeding our kids every day, a nutritious, healthy breakfast and lunch. And I understand we want to give you a little tour whenever you'd like, or answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, we'll be finishing up at 1:30, so
Okay.
if anyone wants to go on that tour, will you be leading it? Okay.
Either myself or a manager.
Okay.
But, I'm going to try to pull away to show you our
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So, save your questions. Jose is our man.
Do you have any questions?
We'll meet you afterwards for the
Perfect.
questions. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Sara comes to us, like I said, from the County Public Health Department, and she's in charge of the manager of that department, of the policy, planning, and communications of that department. And she really cares about the change efforts that are being made or need to be made around health, wellness, and equity in our county. So she's talking about obesity, she's talking about dietetics and all of the healthy things and calories and fats and flours and sugars and all the white stuff that we shouldn't be eating. And she is the one that coordinates all the education that comes around there and is gathering information and having groups together to make a difference in the health of our community from this perspective. So, please put your right hand up in the air. Put your left hand up in the air and give Sara a big round of applause.
I love her, she's fun. I'm so happy to be here, and I look around the room, and there are friends and people that I've known for a long time and people that I've just met, even my daughter's Sunday school teacher. So I'm so excited to be here with you today and talking about our community from the perspective of health and health disparities. So I'll jump right in. If you don't know what a health disparity is, it's fairly intuitive. It's the difference in incidence and prevalence, mortality rates, the burden of disease between different populations as it pertains to their health. And we have a disparity in our community that you might be familiar with. I think you've seen this sky before, and you can't see through it. And so we, in comparison to other areas in California, the nation, and the world, have a disparity in our air quality, which definitely affects our health, is different than what other people experience. And so we experience different health outcomes at Fresno as a result. And a lot of times we can't see those beautiful mountains. They do exist, and we occasionally look and go, oh my gosh, there's mountains right there. I don't know if you have that experience, but I do. It's like, I forgot they're that close because you can't see them a lot of times. I wanted to give you an idea of, there are going to be several maps through here, and we have a wonderful epidemiologist in our department who kind of takes the information and translates it into something that's easier for us to understand. The blue actually is chronic lung disease. And I wanted to show you this map because it's very different from all the rest of them. Basically, all of us are suffering from some degree of asthma in our community. And it's kind of equal opportunity for us all. So we have a health disparity where we are different from the rest of California and the rest of the nation. Everything else I'm going to be talking about are disparities within our county of different groups and that they experience different health outcomes because of where they live. And even a different lifespan. So we talked about health disparity. A health inequity is where a health disparity is unfair, it's unavoidable, and it's rooted in social injustice. So it's not based on some of the things that we typically think contribute to health. They're really a manifestation of other factors that sometimes we don't make correlations with health. So, and we talked about determinants. The first are ones that immediately come to mind, right? There's who our parents were, the genetics that we received. There are lots of health risks that are higher or lower based on your race and ethnicity and your gender as well. And then if you have some sort of disability that impacts your health. So if a person has a health condition and it's not due to one of these things, the first thing that we go to is, individual behavior, right? That's the first place we jump. Well, it must be because of their decision making around their health. Agreed? It's usually what we do to ourselves too. It's my fault I'm unhealthy. It's because I ate the croissant when I really shouldn't have, and it wasn't whole grain, and now I feel guilty. I'm gonna beat myself up about it, right? And we do that to one another as well. But I'd like to offer to you that there are other things that influence our health, and given this group, probably you have a few of those in mind. Socioeconomic status. We know that if a person is employed or unemployed, they have access to things that some do have and some don't, right? And we show it, we can see clearly in the data that if a person is employed, they're far more likely to be healthy. And that's for a couple different reasons. Obviously, they may have access to health insurance or a better health insurance plan, one that doesn't have high deductibles or high copays. They're more likely to go to the doctor, that type of thing. But there's also literacy levels and whether or not they are just aware of the information that helps them make an informed decision about their health. There are also elements of their geographic location, whether or not it's rural or urban, and we're going to talk a lot about that, and their physical environment. If you are really, really hungry and you're in a hurry, and there are 3 fast food restaurants near you, where are you likely to eat? Golden Arches, or one of hundreds of different fast food options. Whether or not there are resources available to you, services available to you. So we've seen changes in our community based on the fact that they used to have larger hub offices of social services that were available, and they changed that and made smaller offices available throughout town. And there have been some positive ramifications of that, and there's been some interesting outcomes they didn't expect. And I'll talk about that later. And then public policy. And I have a great example of that we're going to talk about that. But there, the laws that are in place, the policies are in place, and it's not just government laws, it's also policies that are in place in your workplaces, in your school sites. Whether or not, like some of the policies that were passed around soda in schools have made a big impact on the sugar consumption in kids. So policies also have big impact on what we experience in health outcomes. This is the model that I was taught to use when I was lots younger, started in this field, and it still is a great model that really helps us put in context what we're doing and why we're doing it. And it's really intuitive. You have an individual at the core, and they have outcomes to what it is that they do based on their knowledge, their attitudes, their skills, their motivation levels, and that's their individual decision making, which is where we put most of our emphasis when we look at why is someone unhealthy. Most people in the United States will say, well, it's your fault, it's my fault. But then there's this interpersonal social network, and if Maria has gone and taken a nutrition education class, and she has now skills and motivation and knowledge to be able to implement things, and then she goes home. And who's at home? Kids that may or may not want that new fruit or vegetable, and throw a fit when they're not offered something else and mom doesn't turn into a caterer. And maybe dad isn't too interested in that either because he's interested in, the meal that he's been served for the last 20 years. And Maria's thwarted in her efforts because it just becomes too hard. And she doesn't want dinner to be a fight. Do you like dinner to be a fight? I have young kids. I hate that. I really want dinner to be a calm, lovely experience, and then we fight over food. And that's not fun. So a lot of times women will, even though they have motivation and they want to make changes, they don't. Then, of course, whether or not her kids are getting all of the great things that Jose talked about in their school sites. Are they learning about those healthy options? Are they getting fruits and vegetables to try that they haven't had before at recess? When I go to church, what kind of things are served at potlucks? Are we talking about health? Are we thinking about health in those areas of our life, or is it just something that we need to deal with at home? And at church, it's always a celebration. Every event is a special occasion. And we have lots and lots and lots of special occasions in our culture. It seems like every time we turn around, well, this is just a special occasion. So I deserve to have a thing that's unhealthy for me. And what I ask you to consider is whether or not you deserve to be healthy instead of that. So you see basically philosophically what we're talking about. So as I'm talking about these environmental pieces, keep this in mind. We have lots of layers to the onion. And think through, what are the layers of your onion? Really, when it comes down to it, who helps you make a good decision or an unhealthy decision? And what are those outcomes? Do you have people and environments and structures and institutions that are helping you make a healthy choice? Or then is it really hard? Is it far away, expensive, uncouth, not fun, all of those things, right? To be healthy. So how does this relate? And then when we talk about health disparities, is this really just a culture thing, or does God really have something to say about it? As you'll see as we move forward, we have real health inequities when it comes to areas of our city and our county that are poor. And I know this is Old Testament, we'll look at New Testament too. But the sage of Proverbs is telling us that the poor are shunned, and we know this. Even by their own neighbors, they're shunned. And rich people tend to have lots and lots of friends because it's nice to be around people who have lots of money. They give you things and they do things for you and they make your life easier. And so rich people tend to have lots and lots of friends, and poor people maybe not so much. But it says clearly that it's a sin to despise your neighbor. And you bring blessing upon yourself and your home when you're thinking about the needy. The next verses I found really interesting, because it talks about, somebody who's oppressing the poor for their wealth, or somebody who's giving gifts to the rich person, they both come to poverty. And I thought, well, God, that doesn't really make sense to me, because I know people who are oppressing the poor to increase their wealth, and they're not in poverty. So what do you mean? And the more I dwell on that, the more I thought about, I think poverty here is maybe a different word. And do we have poverty of spirit? Do we have a spirit of poverty in our community, whether you're rich or you're not? Do we have fear that there's not enough to go around? That's a spirit of poverty in our community. So we need to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. And many of us have, by the nature of who we are, where we were born, what the color of our skin is, what role we have in an institution, we have power that we can use. And we need to speak up for those people who do not have that power to speak for themselves. So looking at James 2, this is a long scripture. I'm just going to highlight a couple things. He's talking about showing favoritism. And believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ must not show favoritism. It's real clear, cut and dry. And then the example he gives is you've got this rich man in fine clothes, and he's got a gold ring, and you say, oh, here you go, here's a great chair. And then someone who's poor, you can sit at my feet. And we do this, and we think of ourselves maybe as not actually discriminating when we are. And it's done in subtle ways in our culture. Can you think of examples? I can think of easy examples. It's not very often that we elect someone who's poor, because where are they going to get their campaign financing from? Right? We are discriminating by not giving them the voice that they need. And he points out we've dishonored the poor in what it is that we're doing, and commands us to love our neighbor, and that mercy triumphs over judgment. So you remember the parable of the Good Samaritan? As I went back and I was looking at this, I was thinking about the man who asked, who is my neighbor? Right? And the passage says that the reason he asked the question is because he wanted to justify himself, right? And we do this a lot. We want to justify ourselves, so we say, well, you tell me who my neighbor is. And he went and he handpicked, cherry-picked the person that they did not like the most. And that's who he highlighted as our neighbor. And so I challenge you to think about that personally, about who is your neighbor. Who do you think of right now? When somebody says, oh, that's my neighbor, it's usually somebody you live next to, right? Maybe it's the person that you fellowship with. But who is your neighbor, and do you welcome people that are not like you, or people that maybe even rub you wrong to really be your neighbor? Because that's a challenge to me. I know there are a lot of times where I don't feel that sense of comfort because they're different than I am. Then many times I'll gravitate with the person I already know, or the person who is like me. So I'd like to suggest that this be added to the list. That we really look at discrimination and racism as one of those determinants of health. And if you haven't thought of that in that context before, I challenge you to process that as we go through this. All right, so in my everyday work, I have several hats, and one of them is working on chronic disease, chronic illness. We know that 80% of deaths have these things that are contributing to them. Poor diet, not enough physical activity, tobacco use, and too much alcohol. And how many of you have a perfect diet? Feel, like you get lots and lots of physical activity. We say physical activity instead of exercise because everything counts, even the stuff that's fun, right? So you can do things that are fun, that are physically active, and it still has the health benefits. Like taking the stairs, I don't know if that's fun or not, but you can do it. Hey, we all parked far away. Yay, right? good for us. And there are simple things that you can do to increase your physical activity like that are almost like a switch for us. All right, so here's our map, Fresno County. And I feel like I'm standing in front of people. The red is the worst part. And what I want you to notice as I'm going through these maps is there is this one shape right here. Looks a little bit like a dog. Sometimes it goes over here and it's got maybe a tail on there. Easy for me to find it that way. That, and then our communities of Fowler, Selma, Carlier, Summon, St. You'll see those lighting up each time. So these are mortality rates. So when it comes to diabetes, the way that we got to this map was not that it was the cause of death. Almost very seldom in the death record will diabetes be listed as cause of death because it's usually boils to something that's like a heart attack or some other stroke. But it's listed in the contributing factors. And so this is not what killed people so much as a factor that contributed. And diabetes is a slow burn, right? You don't get diabetes and die tomorrow. You get diabetes and you die years later. And so this is really a glimpse of the health of our community over the last 40 years, right? Heart attack. So peach is the darker, although red is dark, and those areas tend to light up more simply because we have seniors that live in those areas in concentrated ways. The population number is kind of skewed. There are just more deaths. And so it's here, same shape. You can see it. Runs down through here. These same rural communities. Heart attack is a little more equal opportunity. Here you go. Here's composite mortality. Very easy to see that if you live in one area versus another, you're going to experience a different outcome in terms of your lifespan. And here is average years lost. So they can actually calculate, by comparison, whether or not a person or a community experiences a loss of years that should have been realized because of poor health in general. So, for instance, in these red areas, you've got, on average for the 5 years, in each year, you've got about 200 years of life for that community that was lost due to preventable illness. Okay? And that really has a big impact on me. There's potential that is not realized in our community because of the environment that we have that influences personal choice. So let's talk about food and beverage. Here's food deserts. Definition is you've got a significant number of low-income residents within a mile if it's an urban area, 10 miles if it's a rural area, to a grocery store. That's a lot of people that don't have access to just a grocery store. And it seems like kind of a, doesn't everybody have access to a grocery store? I mean, doesn't that kind of make you think, wow, you know, like I remember growing up, there were 3 in walking distance from my house growing up. And there were full-service grocery stores with a deli and everything. Now, I could definitely get really, really great food. And they were prices that my family could afford. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. We collected at the Health Department and with the Health Leadership Institute and other partners as well, really a lot of data. About a year and a half ago in the summer, the summer of 2013, that slide's wrong. And we looked at the types of products that were advertised on the outside of buildings, how much of the windows and doors were covered by ads, and those ads are typically tobacco, alcohol, soda, Rockstar. Okay. Price of the promotions and the ads are on tobacco and alcohol, and availability of healthy foods in those stores. And these were the smaller stores, they were not the big grocery stores, and they all were, because of tobacco prevention money paid for the rent, they were all tobacco retailers. So keep that in mind. We found that 42% of the store surveys had ads outside for sugary drinks, and had only 4.2% had ads for healthy drinks. 33% of the stores had fruits and vegetables, really low in terms of good quality for fruits or vegetables, and really low in terms of having a variety. I mean, think about the grocery store you go to. How often is it that you find fewer than 7 kinds of vegetables? Easily 20 or 30 kinds, depending on which one you go to. And a lot of people in our community have access to a grocery store, and their grocery store has fewer than 7 choices of vegetables. And a lot of them were, like less than 2. You had a basket of oranges, bananas, and apples at the register, and that was it. So this is a really cool map, and I just got it this morning. I'm really excited. I'm kind of nerdy. So let me unpack this one for you. We looked at the availability of fruits and vegetables, whole wheat bread, whole wheat tortillas, so healthier options for the grains, and low-fat milk. So most of the time you'll find 2% or whole milk, but low-fat is 1% or less, which is recommended. And you've got areas in which there's high availability of these foods, not surprising, North End and Clovis, moderate availability, and the low availability of these that goes down here. And I'll tell you, this is the top of that dot shape I pointed out before. You'll see the same patterns as we go through all of these maps. I'm going to come back to this map to talk about the lines, and because that relates to the advertising placement. But you can see really clearly there are major parts of our community that do not have good availability of basic, staple, healthy foods. So I'm going to go back to this one, and I want you on your tables just to take a few minutes, and I want you to answer this question. Where on this map do you worship? Where's your congregation? Find them on the map, and what does your neighborhood and your church community look like through the lens of health, now that we've looked at a couple of these maps? So take about 5 minutes and just discuss that in your tables. 2 people just share. I'd like to have 2 volunteers from different tables just share an impression or something that maybe surprised you hearing from some of the other people at the table. What did you learn about other congregations?
Pick someone out, Sarah. Pick them out.
Anyone?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Yeah,
Share something back that you learned from the conversation.
I'll just share that I learned that mom and pop stores in downtown area we're having green zone parks come in with fresh produce, and we're wondering how successful that was, and that was the model that maybe
What we found in our retail program, we'll talk about that in a little bit, is that there has to be wraparound support education. You can't just offer more fruits and vegetables if they haven't had them available, then they've gotten used to not eating them. So what works best is if you've got policy systems change happening and you've got individuals. So if we go back to that onion, all of the layers have to be working. If you just work on layer 3 and you don't work with the individual to do taste testing of recipes and skills, it's going to be available, not going to buy it. So it has to happen all at the same time.
I have seen that happen in Sacramento's community movement. That's what they work on. They do a whole demonstration and they're doing more.
Can we do the same thing? Our BC prevention program at the health department, one of the subcontractors we work with is our community food bank. And they have a really cool truck that goes to communities. It's a food demonstration truck and it's got cameras inside and people can come in and look at what it is that they're doing. And they make recipes preparing the foods that are actually in the distribution so people know how to use them and create healthy recipes with them. So that's one of the things that we're doing in Fresno County. All right, anyone else have a comment?
In our group, several were in the red, their churches in the red part, but the people didn't have access to the food, but in addition, transportation to get out of the red zone over to the other zone wasn't available either. So it's kind of a multiple complex problem.
All of these issues are multiple and complex. That's why they're intractable. There are these compounding problems, and I can only talk about so many of them, but transportation is a big issue, and that's why there were lots of advocates that were advocating for things like bus rapid transit and things in our community, because access to services, healthy foods, opportunities for physical activity, things like that are difficult. Healthcare, if they need to go to Valley Children's, it's really difficult. Is that what you're going to talk about?
I was going to say that, in addition to the transportation issue, specifically in West Fresno, where we did do green carts in local liquor stores, there was a competing issue where you could buy like junk food with your EBT card, like potato chips and candy, and they have big signs, use your EBT card. And when I called the state office over SNAP, and I was like, what the heck? Why can't you buy candy with your EBT card? It's not healthy. It's not. And they told me we cannot define what is food. It blew me away, because here we are, boots on the ground, trying to fight obesity and malnutrition. And so when you have a mom who's got 3 or 4 kids, and the choice is an apple that costs 79 cents in some areas versus a big bag of chips that's going to keep people fuller longer. There's competing issues that, that has to be addressed at a policy level.
Right.
For
So
us
it's
to
another
really address.
excellent example
Yeah.
of that's different layer of the onion. And a big layer, really important, and it's been debated lots at the federal level about whether or not food stamps, EBT, in California it's called CalFresh, should we limit what it is that they're allowed to purchase with those? And it has not yet gotten to the place where they're willing to do that. They've gone more the other direction of trying to provide an incentive for them to use it for healthy items by like giving them double bucks, and they get credits for purchasing this. If they don't, there's a pilot project that's in motion right now where if they don't, but they agree that they're not going to purchase soda, and if they do, they got extra money in their EBT and it's upfront and it's voluntary. But when they try and swipe their EBT card for soda, they can't buy it. And they can opt out at any point, but they're either in the program or they're out. They get extra money if they do this. So they're looking at it from a carrot instead of a stick kind of perspective, but it's highly debated. So one more comment and then I'm going to move on because there are lots more slides.
That red area where it's a low availability, a lot of it is culture-based in that campesinos or farm workers get a check and they can't go to the bank. Most of the time they're illegal or something. They can't go to the bank where the local corner grocery store will cash a check for them. So there's services available at the little community grocery stores they can't get outside that community.
So again, compounding issues. So there's the county as a whole, and you can see that there are these other areas. At a lot of those areas, it's about how far the population is just spread out. It's very rural. All right, so here are some examples of the kind of stores that we've been talking about. That's their produce selection. It's not quality. There's certainly not variety. This was one in one of the stores. They've got the facility and they don't stock anything in there. This was a typical corner store. And I went in there and I took the pictures myself. This one is pretty clean and it's neat. And I didn't count them up, but if we go through here, I think there were 13 distinct displays, this being a display with all junk food. And I'll show you the one area that had anything healthy. Okay, so you've been in these stores, right? How many of you been on a trip and there's a small store, you're starving, that's the only store there is for miles, and you go in here and you're thinking, well, I guess I'm getting chips and soda because that's all there is. That's how some people live all the time. Right? They had bagel bites surrounded by ice cream. Then, clearly the people like the pastries because they cleared that one out. Right? And here's candy aisle. So I don't know if you can consider that one display or three because there's 3 sections to it, but candy galore. Here's where you get into the real food that they had offered. You've got frozen burritos, an entire thing of frozen burritos. There's a couple things of juice they got, and what I've noticed was interesting is, they had the bagel bites and the other ones, bagel bites over here in this display that's different, burritos here, burritos there. So they've got these multiple displays, but it's all the same stuff, it's just spread out. So there's no real options. It's like, well, you get a burrito or have a sandwich. There's some sandwiches there, or a burrito. Because, I think they had a microwave in there, so you could heat up the burrito. What are you going to do with the bagel bites? It just doesn't make sense. So here's real food. You've got a bunch of nuts, lots of them, very, very high in salt, and many of them covered in sugar. Then this is their grocery aisle. And most of these were only like 1 deep. So one person came in and bought peanut butter, the next person, too bad, there's no peanut butter left. Pretty common. You've seen this, right? Pretty common. All right, so let's talk about obesity. Here's our trend in obesity from 1970 to 2000, and it's gone up since there, but is now starting to plateau. So the line is just starting to level up this way. We don't know exactly why it is. We're really hoping that's because of all the great work of people like myself and Sabrina's been working on it. But it's just, it's 500 calories difference between the consumption patterns in 1970 and what they are in this decade. So you're talking about 500 calories a day is a pound a week. And we've been steadily gaining.
But these lines are 500 calories each?
No, 500 calories per day. This represents an increase of 500 calories per day for each one of us.
All the way up.
Oh, yeah. The difference in that. So what we know is that, based in the research, the biggest contributor to that is soda consumption. So we've looked at the soda sizes, right? And then we fool ourselves, right? Now the little soda cans have come in, but how many are actually buying those things? Anybody? And when you buy them, do you drink one? Probably not. But, there are these jokes that get told about, like, how big does a big gulp get? Are we going to have a suitcase with a straw that comes up and just drag it behind? Or, how much soda do we really need? And
You don't have one of those?
I don't. So there really has been a lot of effort put into reducing soda consumption, but I think you can imagine there are some real constraints to that. I have another slide that I'll show you later about the advertising budgets of competitors.
Oh, what about diet sodas? They're not sweet. Are those good for you?
That's a whole nother conversation. I'm happy to have it, but it's really
No, I don't want to hear it.
Takes us way out. You're like, don't talk about my diet soda, I want it. I'll just say that there's research to show that sugar and diet soda both light up the part of your brain that also lights up when people use cocaine. So it's addictive. And, you know, a lot of, I'll just say that, no problem. A lot of the problems with diet sodas is that, you know, your senses in your mouth trigger reactions in your brain which trigger body responses. So it's not just the actual sugar in your gut that causes your metabolism to shift, it's also signals that you're getting. So if you're consuming artificial sweeteners, they don't have the research to completely, you know, definitively say that it's looking like it's still going to cause issues in your body related to glucose intolerance and diabetes.
I'll have the findings maybe in 20 years or later.
Well, no, there's this one guy who is really, you know, going after this, and he's been on lots of big shows, so hopefully he can get his research together. So, Photo Voice is a project that Yami and working with her youth, and she'll talk about that, and we do in various communities in the county with both youth and adults. And it's an opportunity for community members to learn a little bit about what's healthy and unhealthy and how things influence them, and go out in their community and make observations and take pictures, and then have comments about it. And so while we're talking about obesity, I thought this one was particularly interesting. Here's Anna. I thought this was pretty ironic. The cups say healthy, green, and friendly. Now there's nothing wrong with being green and friendly, but it's not very healthy having a mountain full of ice cream, candy, and chocolate as toppings. So we trick ourselves. And a lot of times there are factors related to individual behavior where we're just flat duping ourselves, right? Am I the only one in this? I tell myself that, oh, I'm just going to have one, I'm just going to have a little bit, it's not so bad, all those things. And it's very, very encouraged and reinforced by marketing. And being aware of how marketing is influencing your decisions is really important. When it comes to beverages, availability of water is a big deal in our community, not just in terms of drought. Like, we have access. You and I have access most of the time, but we're on school campuses, sports fields, in parks, where people really should have access to clean drinking water. Many times it's the situation where the water fountain is broken, and then our kids is likely to go there, maybe not. So there's maintenance issues. There's another broken fountain. That was on a trail. Any questions about any of that before I move on to physical activity?
Sir, do we have any data as far as like with parks, with functioning waters
I don't.
from Fresno, the city of Fresno?
We don't. And it changes so fast because, you know, when they get around to coming and fixing it, did somebody call? Right? When you encounter a broken water fountain, I've never called. There I am doing this, I've never called about a broken water fountain. But I've come across them lots of times.
What about, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, a lot of reasons those faucets are broken. We found out from Parks and Recs that people are stealing the copper out of the water faucets and out of the lighting as well, but mainly out of the water faucets.
Stealing copper is a big issue in our community. Fulton Mall used to have this great sound system, and that was a nice place to walk. And our office is on Fulton Mall, and it was great. You could go out, you could walk, there was music, but somebody stole all the copper and no music anymore. It's still a nice place to walk, and I enjoy it. But that's really a big issue. All right, so physical activity. The California Health Interview Survey indicated that people reported, now this is self-reported behavior, so those who had vigorous activity at least 20 minutes a day, 3 days a week, excludes walking, 64.9% of kids, which that's really disheartening to me because my kids, you couldn't get them to sit still. Like, what do you have to do to children to get them to not exercise for 20 minutes a day? 3 days a week, right? So what are we doing in our society that we're actually pushing them to a place that's counterintuitive to them? Like, they want to move. Their natural inclination is to move, and we get them sitting still by enticing them with video games and television and classrooms that are militant. Teens, the rate's slightly higher, and a lot of that is structured sports and things like that, but adults, 17%. Moderate physical activity, You'll see defined there, it goes up just a little bit. And they didn't have the children and teens assessed for those other categories. No physical activity, almost 14% of adult, none. No walking, no nothing. That's kind of scary. So I'm going to show you more of these photo voice projects. And I really love that it's in the voice of the young person. This photo is of the only skate park in our city, and the skate park is always closed. The kids resorted to making a hole in the fence to gain access. Restrooms are never open, there's no drinking fountain on the site, and the only way to prevent kids from breaking the fence is to keep it open. Here's one where they're showing no sidewalks. It's not safe. How is it that a kid would be able to walk to the playground or walk to their school or walk to their friend's house if they lived in a neighborhood like this? I wouldn't let my kid walk that. It's not safe. They're going to get hit by a car. Here you have a public playground. You've got graffiti, no playground equipment. Field is dead, and part of that is we have a drought. We recognize that. But that doesn't look enticing to me. I don't know about you. And it might be that we need to consider drought in how we design our parks as well. It can't just be infinite amount of grass. It has to be other types of physical activity. Okay, so here's one. It looks really nice, doesn't it? It's green. Green's good, but all the swings are broken. And this big spot right here, there used to be equipment there, and it's just gone. Flood took it away. I don't know, who knows where it went. So, who's going to play there? Maybe you play ball on the grass? That's an inviting slide. Broken. This is an example of a great park. And we have them. Not every park is bad, not every store is bad. So I want to make sure that we see there are some great spaces that we're able to create. We have that potential in our community. And throwing in tobacco-free, which all of our parks are supposed to be tobacco-free. This one is actually letting everybody know that. Now this one I thought was interesting. This girl, age 8, said, "This photo is a church that is welcome for all of God's children and is a safe place for people to worship. It's positive for the community because it's a safe place for people to get clothes, food, sing for God, and worship Him. And I think we should invite more people to come into the churches." 8 years old. But she said safe twice. So that tells you what her context is. That she can actually, at the age of 8, identify this is a safe place. She has to have a context for what unsafe looks like and feels like. And that's scary to me. I don't like that an 8-year-old child really knows what that means and can write this articulately about it. So I want you in your tables to talk about what is a safe church. We've talked about the environment. I mean, there's certainly violence that comes into play and things like that, but let's explore more about what's a safe church. We talked about discrimination and racism. Talk about some of those issues and ask yourself, and maybe you'd like to share it if you feel comfortable, do you feel like your congregation is a safe place for anyone to be able to come? So let's spend some time talking about it. Talked about this slide in terms of advertising. So when we look at clear windows and doors in stores, that's important because of the law that was passed called Lean Law, and they're not supposed to have more than 30% of those covered. It was a safety issue, but we ride that train in public health because the ads are alcohol, tobacco, and Rockstar. So again, it's the same folks that are experiencing these issues with, not only do they have poor access, but then they are bombarded with commercials for the unhealthy. So let me just walk you through this one. Here's the front of a typical store, name not revealed. Here we've got alcohol, tobacco, sugar-sweetened beverages. They can't just do it on the store, they have to do it out on the post as well. And then you go inside, and the signs are everywhere. Here's your local tobacco center. And these are, I mean, that looks like a pretty clean store. Oh, sorry, circle, nothing. All right. Tobacco self-service. I didn't think this was allowed. Tobacco self-service. So teens aren't going to grab that. They're not going to steal from those displays. Here you've got alcohol wallpaper, which I just find, sorry. I imagine people wanting this wallpaper. And look at how they're appealing to teens because they've got their favorite sports teams over there. Here's cheap tobacco and e-cigarettes. And I'll tell you, e-cigarettes is a big deal with teens. And they don't know how to regulate it and control it because they make e-cigarettes to look like pens. And they can vape in class with nobody knowing. And they're putting marijuana in them. It's a big deal. The sheriff's office put out a no vaping policy for their employees. We're going to be doing that for the Department of Public Health because it's going to be the next wave. We spent a lot of time making tobacco something that people would go, oh, you're not supposed to do that, to something that might become accepted again through e-cigarettes.
If they vape, is that better than smoking cigarettes? Or I don't know exactly.
It's supposed to be better for the environment. So they're still getting the tobacco, but you're not supposedly getting the second hand, but there's research that's going on right now about other chemicals that it puts off that might be harmful to those around them. Here is an alcohol ad below 3 feet. Why is that important? Children are looking down, so they're advertising and targeting kids with these messages.
That's on the floor, right?
That's on the floor. All right, now, I can tell you more about this if you're interested, but Cisco, here it is marketed, and this one over here, it's marketed directly above V8 juice, right? That right there is 18% alcohol up above the top row. And it looks like a wine cooler, but if a person consumes 3 of those, they can literally die. Yeah.
At the Johnny Quick, like where I used to live, they had that drink, Four Locos, mixed in the middle of energy drinks, like the Monsters and stuff. And my husband actually got a hold of one, thinking that it was an energy drink. Held him to the hospital. We had him in the hospital. We had to call the ambulance because he was just took him out of his mind.
So sometimes it can happen with confusion, but the reality is that think about it in terms of a marketing technique. Here you've got a situation where this lemonade looks exactly like this alcohol, which is exactly the same as the one on the top. It's like 18-20%. And here you've got flavored wines in these jugs that are this size for $7. So you've got placement, marketing, and price all promoting things that are really not good. And of course, youth are more susceptible to marketing than adults are, and they're more targeted than even adults. So the research shows that as storefront advertising can increase the odds of preteen tobacco and alcohol use by 50%. It's a big deal. Here we have conflicting messages, so I want you to notice this one. Welcome to the fruit stand, and that's soda, right there. Wick, next to Bud Light, and here's cigarettes. All right, so here we've got EBT. Here's alcohol. Look for the green arrows as they come up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Over there. 9, 10. Okay, there were 10 alcohol ads on just this space. Here's tobacco. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Okay, so, and this is what they spend on advertising. And I can tell you that my tobacco budget in Fresno County is $150,000. And my obesity prevention is $2.2 million. We don't, different department handles alcohol prevention. Would this store survive in 972 world? Right by my church.
Across the street, right here.
Sure. Right? There are pocket communities, but by and large, would it survive in the higher income neighborhoods? It wouldn't. They wouldn't stand for it. So there's that lead law I was talking about, and we have a solution. We're working with communities to try and pass local ordinances to reduce from 33 to 15%. And I'm going to have Yami come up and talk about her work with the youth working on that.
Yes. So I just briefly wanted to just talk about how churches are starting to get involved in this work. My name is Yamilet Rodriguez. I go by Yami for short. So that is what my friends call me. So now I do all my friends can call me Yami. I am the director, senior director for Youth Leadership Institute. Our mission is to build communities that invest in youth and that young people and adults are making positive change in their communities. So that is my professional life. About 2 or 3 years ago, we said we want our church youth to start working on this work too. And I'll tell you a little bit of history of why that launched and why the young people came to us and said, listen, we need to work on something to change our community. My husband and I are also volunteer pastors of a church in Southeast Fresno, 93702 zip code. Belmont and Cedar right next to Roseville High School. So we're right in the middle, right smack dab in the middle of the neighborhood. It's a small Mennonite Brethren church, and we love our neighbors and we love our community members. And our congregants that go to our church have started to feel these issues that are really near and dear to their heart. So I wanted to show a little bit of a video. Let's see if Miss Sarah can come on. I use a Mac, so yeah, cool. Okay, so this video is going to just give you a little bit of the history of why in 2012 the young people in our church were like, we have to do something. Well, I can show you some of the pictures that we have, and I'll just kind of share with you. Part of the work that we do at Youth Leadership Institute is to also look at how can we develop youth so that they can see what is in their surrounding communities and try to work with adults to make positive change. Part of it is alcohol prevention. We've been looking at the issue of access. How many access points of alcohol do young people have in our communities that leads to other things and underage drinking. The other piece that we do is we look at school climate issues. At one point we've actually done a corner store makeover. So those pictures that were taken by young people, some of our youth took those pictures so they can say, this isn't right, and let's talk to the store owner because, yes, you're a small business owner, we want to work with you. Can we work with you to be more community friendly? Can we work with you to be more family friendly? And a lot of them said yes. A lot of them rushed us out of their stores, but a lot of them did say yes. And a lot of them signed a pledge that said that they wanted to be more community friendly. Obviously, the people that are patronizing their stores are the members of that neighborhood, right? Of that community. So yes, they wanted to be more family friendly. But it takes relationship building, it takes connection. It took young people going back to those stores over and over again and saying, hey, this is where I come, to buy a snack, or this is where my family comes to buy milk. But yeah, I see all these other things in front of me that are unhealthy. So one of the things that pretty much launched the reason why our young people came to us and said, we want to work on issues that are going to be a little bit more deeper. We call it a deeper justice. Yes, do we have issues of access to food in our community? Yeah, we give out food. Do we have issues of clothing? Yeah, we give out clothing too. But we needed to say we have to go deeper. We have to look at the root of the problem. What is the root of the problem? Can we keep putting band-aids and trying to solve these problems with these temporary solutions? We could do that. But what is this generational disparity that has been going on and on and on? And so the young people said, we've had enough. In 2012, we had a shooting, and one of our congregants, her house got shot up. And what I wanted to show you, the video was of pastors and nonprofits and all these people from different sectors. Randy, you were there too, saying, we've had enough. We as a community are coming together because we are just tired of the violence that's happening in our communities. So the young people said, we want to do a little bit more research on that. So the research was that shootings are higher in your community depending on the number of liquor stores that you have in your community. There was a direct tie. And so what they did is they did a little bit of research and to find out like how many liquor stores do we have around our community? And one of those was this. So I wanted to share this slide with you. So our church is by Roosevelt, right? So the liquor licenses within 1 mile of Roosevelt High School. How many are there right there? 30. Okay, so that data is a little bit old because we started this back in 2012. We just updated this. We have 36 now. So if shootings are connected to the number of liquor stores in your community, what does that mean? Then they started saying, but wait a second, why does our Bullard High School friends don't have that same type of access to alcohol that we do? Why is that disparity so clear? So this was something that they wanted to work on. They, with the research, we want to make sure that we empower our young people with the skills, but also the research. We were able to partner with our Fresno County Public Health, and they did surveying of stores. They talked to store owners. They wanted to make those connections with them. They did a lot of planning to say, well, what does this even mean? We have the data in front of us. How do we look at this issue, not by ourselves, right? Because it's young people and adults working together to be able to make this happen, and also not just our church. One thing that we wanted to make very clear to our brothers and sisters is, hey, we need your help. If we're going to be able to tackle this problem, we need to be hand in hand going forward. So a lot of trainings with young people. We had young people come from Fresno Pacific University. We brought some store owners together to say, we recognize that you're saying you want to be more community friendly, but we're holding you to it, right? And so at that point, they recognized the young people that worked with the project. That was in 2013. They had a neighborhood party to celebrate with the community members and to celebrate with the neighbors to say, hey, we're making changes little by little. One of those big pieces is working with elected officials. This past summer, they hosted a town hall meeting at the church to say, we need our brothers and sisters to come together. We need our community members. They knocked on doors. They talked to our neighbors. We had a full church of people that said, we want to tackle this head on. And one of the things that the young people asked is like, what do you want to be a part of? How can we take action? And one of those main things was to address the issue of the saturation of unhealthy advertising in our community stores. Would I love to take some licenses away? Oh yeah, I would. Would I love to just shut down some of those stores? Heck yeah, I would.
You can with low work.
You can actually. There has been some studies in South Central LA. It took 20 years, but they reduced their liquor stores by about 60%. But it took a 20-year process, and every single part of the community was a part of that process. So community change takes time, right? We know that. It does take time. But I think we're in the beginning stages, which is good. So at this town hall meeting, they invited elected officials to come. So we had City Councilwoman Esmeralda Soria was there, Capriolio was there, Bain's office was there. So they were there. They were ready to hear the youth voices, and they were ready to say, okay, we're ready to make that next step. So they promised, and we recorded it. They said that they would address this issue of the advertising saturation in our corner stores, and that they would also start to look at the issue of the stores not abiding by the state law, because there's an actual state law that says that every census tract can only have 4 liquor stores. And we are so in violation of that state law. So they want to start looking at that. So the reason why I wanted to share with you what the young people have been doing is because this has all been based out of the church. And 4 other churches that have come to the table to say, you know what, we want to be able to allow our young people to know what advocacy means, and we want to be a part of it. So we're really grateful, and also I'm just so incredibly proud for the work that the young people have been doing, and the partnerships that have been created to be able to do that.
Like, you know, the Faith Christian Fellowship is a really big church, right? So you have to be a big church to be able to make this happen?
No, dude, we're teeny. I have 60 members. Got me.
So that we all know.
I mean, we have 60 members, and we're super duper small. but we're able to partner with our fellow brothers and sisters, and gosh, it's just so awesome to see everyone come together like-minded for change, amen? So I thank you for the opportunity to share with you, but this is how we can get involved. This is as we as churches can say, you know, we can take our city back. We can totally take our city back. And we can also say that we're not afraid for our young people to play in front of their houses anymore.
Think about what you can do individually as well. Here's a list of suggestions.
You know, there's a group called Faith and Community that does community organizing to do major projects like close stores down, foreign theaters, whatever. You might want to talk to them.
We're already there, brother. We've been connected with them very closely.
Yami's on top of it. Thank you, Yami, so much. That's one great example of even how you can get your youth group involved in your neighborhood. I don't know why I put this candy in my mouth. That's funny. Candy? You're eating candy? But there are other ways. I mean, we have 30, 70 sports programs all over town getting kids active on a Saturday morning. You can advocate for your neighborhood for the kids. You can help with volunteering in the classrooms, and even if maybe you have folks in your congregation that have a background in nutrition or dietetics or whatever, have them do some education at the schools for the parents. Doing that for the kids at a location like Saturday Sports or where kids gather. Faith and Community does a lot of prayer walks, and that they want to address the shootings in neighborhoods. You know, how many shootings did we just have last week? Last weekend, a couple, or was it last weekend? And that affects whether parents will let their kids go out to a park. You know, if kids are getting shot by random bullets, are their parents going to go let them get exercise at the park? No. So there's all these cause and effects that directly affect health. So, can I get Andrew and Brenda up here? We've got some announcements on things. If you want to contact me about some opportunities to get your congregations involved, my contact info is on this EMT brochure. Hold on, Serena. Let me introduce Brenda Bravo. She's going to share a little bit about city stuff.
So one of the things that Yami, two highlights that word that she said was change, making a change here in Fresno and taking our city back. This year I want to introduce City Summit. It's a 2-day conference. Our speaker is going to be Lisa Sharon Harper. If you guys are familiar with Christian community development, that's the work that we're going to be having at the conference. It's going to be highlighted. Every year there's a national conference held, Christian Community Development. And so this is like a regional piece to the conference, and it's going to be here in Fresno. And there's going to be different workshops of different ways that you can get involved to do just that. Have a Christian community development here in Fresno, bringing a change here in our community, bringing God's peace here in our city. And there's different ways where we have different gifts, different talents, and we can use those gifts and different talents to bring about that change here in Fresno. So it's a 2-day conference, March 20th and March 21st. Friday, the piece on Friday is from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and the one on Saturday, the 21st, is from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. These flyers, you do have them on your tables, so just check us out. There's also a website that there's a brief video that'll give you some information about the conference itself.
And Rufael's going to share about a couple of events.
Yeah, No Name's not something that we just hope is stale, just, information at you. It's something that's active, it's living, it's breathing. We did our first Race in Fresno panel back in October, and I'm on staff at the Well, and I had a really heated conversation with Brad Bell about Ferguson or about Trayvon Martin. It was pretty intense, but it was good learning. And so I asked him to be part of that first panel. And over the last year and a half, he's done a lot of learning. He's become friends with some other pastors in our city, and it's been a joy to see his kind of continued growth in this area. So you have on your table something called Hope Fresno. Sabrina's going to be there, and DJ Kreiner, E.T. Lewis, Paul Binion. And it's going to be a conversation on race. So that's going to be the Friday night piece, is more of a panel and hearing from them. and really listen to the African American voices and some of the African American voices in our community. And then Saturday is going to be led by Faith and Community and more of a training on race. And so I really hope you come, and what it's just to no names, just what God did through that event is He really stirred Brad's heart. And so it's just fun to be obviously on staff and watching this happen, but just to no name, this is making radical change in our community. So I'm excited about that, so you have that info. Open invite, no cost. And then I'm also a part of something with Randy called Faith and Finance. So we've noticed the same need, and this is following up on our last no name about economics in our city, that there's a lot of folks that are struggling financially, and there's some great government curriculum, and there's some great church curriculum, but the church curriculum typically hits a middle class person. It's not targeted in its delivery, it's kind of adult teaching ways, and the content's how to buy a house, save for retirement, those kind of things. We found something with the Chalmers Center curriculum that is church-based, Christ-centered, yet really targeted at the low-income community, and it has been amazing. I've got to be in classes where people bring in their payday loans and are saying, I'm done. This is my last one. I just paid it off. We've got to watch folks open their first bank account, savings account at 45. Never had a savings account. So we've seen an amazing change. And if you want your church or your neighborhood to be involved in that, we're going to be doing a training in March. And so CCT and some generous donors have dropped the cost from what typically would be about $400 or $500 for this training to $95. So you see that code there on this, and we're going to be doing that in March. And so last March we trained 23 different trainers that are now doing Faith and Finance throughout Fresno. So I think it's just an amazing opportunity to be a part of it. So.
Last little flyer in the car, Serve Fresno Week is really a 2-week opportunity to get your congregation involved in serving our community. There's going to be a concert kickoff at the Well Propaganda and Beautiful Eulogy, but you can just read this card to get that information. If you are interested in possibly getting your church to do a service project during that 2-week period, just give me a call. Sabrina, did you have a question?
I was going to say, is the PowerPoint available, the maps?
Yes.
So can we get that on our website on the donate?
I'll email it out to everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So let me say a prayer. I'm going to pray for our kids in our schools since we're on a President.
Artie, could we just thank our speakers today?
Father God, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for just your heart for your church to be relevant in our city, in your city. So Lord, just we pray for the kids in Fresno Unified, Clovis Unified, Central Unified, Washington Unified, all those districts that make up our city. Lord, just be with them. Keep them safe. Keep them, just let them be kids. Let them have fun. Let them have joy in their hearts. Let them not have to worry about random bullets. Let them not have to worry about alcohol or drugs on their campuses, bullying on their schools. Lord, just you are so good, and we just want to represent you well, but we also want to serve you. We want to serve you in your city, in your kingdom. So utilize your church to whatever we're gifted in. Sometimes we're gifted as a church to do something, or sometimes we're gifted as an individual to do something, and both. So use how we are wired uniquely, gifted and talented to do your service for kids, parents, our neighborhoods, our city, those that are lost, the voiceless, and everyone in each Lord. So just thank you for this time. Thank you for our speakers. Thank you for listening, and thank you for Fresno Unified sharing their with us. We love you so much. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So next,
a tour.
Yeah, so there's a tour. We can be right out here at the main desk. And then March, our City Summit is our No Name Fellowship. So you can attend City Summit. We won't have a